We are continuing to follow breaking news for you out of Palm Springs, California. At least 5 people are injured. 1 person is dead after an explosion right near a fertility clinic there. Video obtained by ABC News shows the aftermath of broken glass and debris scattered in the street out in front of several businesses, including that fertility clinic. People reported feeling the force of that blast throughout the city. Several law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and ATF, are investigating. Palm Springs mayor telling the Los Angeles Times that he could, quote, confirm it was a bomb in or near a vehicle parked at the building. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has been briefed on the situation, saying, quote, violence against a fertility clinic is unforgivable. For more, let's bring in Rob McMillan. He's a reporter at our Los Angeles station KABC, and he's on the scene in Palm Springs. Also joining us is ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Rob, I want to start with you. The Palm Springs Police Department believes this to be an intentional act. What are authorities telling you right now?
Well, first off, this is a massive crime scene. Several city blocks here in downtown Palm Springs blocked off with crime tape, and we've seen all sorts of investigators out here. What we've been able to determine is really what we've been able to see from our own helicopter. One witness described this as a car bomb. Now, from our helicopter, we can see that behind that fertility clinic, in the parking lot behind the clinic, just to the west of the building, there was a car that we believe was parked right up to the fertility clinic. Now, as we look at it, it was blown perhaps maybe 30 feet away toward a dumpster from that blast. Again, the concussion of that blast just annihilated the entire eastern portion of that building. And then what we saw is the blast then sent a number of bits of debris forced through the building out onto the street. The concussion so strong that it actually blew out the windows at Desert Regional Medical Center, the 3rd-story windows across the street from that blast. Liquor store, looks like there's an apartment complex, several buildings around that fertility clinic also have their windows shattered. Now, from what the fertility clinic posted on Facebook this morning in a statement, they told us that they are heartbroken to learn that this event did claim a life and caused injuries, and our deepest condolences go out to the individuals and families affected. We are immensely grateful to share that no members of the ARC team were harmed, and our lab, including all eggs, embryos, and reproductive materials, remains fully secure and undamaged. We are conducting a complete safety investigation and have confirmed that our operations and sensitive medical areas were not impacted by the blast. Again, ABC News reporting that at least 5 people injured. They believe the suspect in this is dead. However, we don't know if the suspect died in the car, if indeed that was a car bomb. We did see from our helicopter on the other side of the street what appeared to be a body covered by a sheet, but whether that's the suspect or perhaps an innocent bystander who may have been killed by the blast, the authorities have not confirmed any of that at this point. Back to you.
All right, Brad, let's pick up where Rob just left off. You're looking at these pictures along with us. Rob's talking about what we can see from the helicopter, and we saw some of those pictures. This wasn't a small blast. This was a big blast that tore through that building, windows on the 3rd floor of a building across the street, half that car blown off. And we are talking, we're hearing about a suspect within the first hour or so of this investigation. What does all of that tell you?
Well, it tells you that in all probability, Phil, this was intentional. First of all, that's usually when you hear that car bombs have been used, they're always planted, they're always placed at a particular location for a particular reason. Now, you might ask, late morning on a Saturday, how busy is this building going to be? So, you know, what was the motive of the bad people or bad person involved in this? Who knows? They're not really focused on that right now. They're really focused on who this car belongs to, what cameras tell them about people moving around this car, and the bomb techs will tell them in fairly short order between ATF and FBI what they have, what type of bomb it was it remote detonated, was somebody inside the car when it blew up, all of those things. But the very, very important key here is this the only bomb? Was this, a lone actor with a bomb for whatever motive he or she might have? And that's going to be the real key. So there's all sorts of things There's many moving parts that are simultaneously going on here to figure out exactly what they have.
And Rob, you're really familiar with the city of Palm Springs. You report all over that area. What can you tell us about the area where this blast went off?
Well, first off, the fertility clinic itself is a rather small building. Just to the north of it is a liquor store. Behind it is a big parking lot that's shared by a couple of other buildings. We haven't been able to identify those yet, although they look like they could be either small apartments or small businesses. Now, across the street, though, is Desert Regional Medical Center. That's the only level 1 trauma center in this entire area. So, as you might imagine, affected by a lot of what has happened here. I should point out that this is the time of year when the temperatures really start to climb in the Coachella Valley. Obviously a really nice day today besides the wind. And so this is the time of year that a lot of the snowbirds, if you will, tend to go back to the northern part of the country and Canada. So this is the time of year when the population in the Coachella Valley tends to drop by half, if not even more than that. So perhaps some bit of good news that there weren't more people walking in and around the area compared to, say, a couple of months ago when there would have been many more tourists in the area.
Brad, Attorney General Pam Bondi has already tweeted about this, said she's been briefed. She says, I've been briefed on the explosion at a fertility clinic. She says violence against fertility clinics is unforgivable. So, you know, the investigation's ongoing. We haven't had any official reports from police, but the U.S. Attorney General is saying this fertility clinic was targeted. If that turns out to be the case, what concerns you about this kind of violence?
Well, the problem here is, of course, if that's true, what the AG believes or knows, if it's true, then what was the actual motive of the person who did this? As I mentioned earlier, it's an odd thing to blow up this place, I think, on a Saturday morning, late morning, outside the building. Was the motive just to damage the building because of issues in reference to fertility? Now, if in fact some version of what I just said is true, you're going to find, is there a connection to this building? In other words, have they had threats? Have there been issues by certain individuals, certain groups that may take them in a direction possibly in this case? But it's hard, as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to believe this is not intentional and that the fertility clinic has something to do with the motive, obviously, of the person who set off this bomb.
Officials using the word suspect inside of the first hour, and the Attorney General saying violence against a fertility clinic is unforgivable. It certainly seems like at this point that it was an intentional act. Rob McMillan from our LA station KABC and Brad Garrett, as always. Brad, thanks for your expertise.